Thanks for tuning in to OFN College Football Weekly with Mitch Light of Athlon Sports for this Thursday, the 7th of November, 2019 on the Our-Lads Football Radio Network. At ourlads.com, the king of online football depth charts and college football scouting. OFN College Football Weekly is brought to you by Athlon Sports, the leading publisher of preseason annuals for more than 50 years, sold in 60,000 outlets nationwide. All right, Mitch, so with the season entering the final month of the regular season, I think it's a good time for us to take a look at our preseason predictions and compare what's going on around the nation, conference by conference, including the playoffs, because the first playoffs rankings were released just a couple days ago.
Yes, and just mild surprise. My only big takeaway there, I would have had LSU first, but no big deal with Ohio State. But I was pretty surprised that Clemson was 5th and Penn State was 4th.
But like you said, I mean, there's no big deal there. We all know that the games will take care of itself. I don't know if it's going to mean anything for Clemson. Maybe they'll take it out on NC State on Saturday. I don't know. I wouldn't be happy if I'm NC State.
Right. I agree.
Yeah. Other than that, it doesn't really mean anything. How about outside the top 5? Was there anything like? I mean, I was a little bit surprised to see Minnesota not getting, or maybe even Baylor. I get what's going on. I just hope that when you're that far down, if you take care of business, it doesn't affect you. I don't think it would. I think if Minnesota beats Penn State on Saturday, they'll shoot up and probably be a top 10 team. Do you agree?
Yes. Minnesota, I think, has nothing to worry about. I don't think they will be in position later in the year, but if they run the table and win out, they will be in the college football playoff. They'll have wins against Penn State and Wisconsin and Iowa and then Ohio State or, Penn State. Well, no, I guess if they beat Penn State, then Penn State's probably not winning the East. So Ohio State, they'll have ample opportunity to make some statements. I understand why the committee has them low. They had 3 wins against, 2 G5 wins and then 1 FCS win that went down to the wire to open up the season. They played better, but against bad Big Ten teams, so they'll have ample opportunities.
All right, let's go ahead and start off, first of all, in the SEC with the big matchup. Of course, last week, Georgia took care of Florida, and I felt good about that win because we talked about it last week. I think Georgia, they have lost during the regular season and had those clunkers the last couple of years, and they go out and respond, and they responded in the way that I kind of expected them to. They had their best game of the season, even though the game scoreboard-wise was close. I don't really think it was as close as the scoreboard indicated. I think Georgia was a comfortable, better team all the way through. And now what Georgia has to do is continue what they've done the previous season. As a matter of fact, Georgia, I looked it up, they have won 8 out of 9 straight up and against the spread the last 2 years after their first loss of the season when we do not include the playoffs or bowls. So basically, they lose that first game between that time and before they get to the SEC championship game. They find a way to, first of all, get to the SEC championship game, and, of course, B, win as many games as you need to so they can get there. So I expect them to continue to do that against Missouri this week. I think they're going to pound Missouri, and that's one of my 5-star picks this week.
Yeah, Missouri's obviously struggling on the road. And Georgia, they got their act together. It's a bad loss, though. Losing South Carolina at home, especially with the injury at the quarterback position to South Carolina. But we knew they could recover from this loss. They just have to keep winning games. But we wanted them to see them play better, and that's what they did last week. They showed that they are playoff worthy, I believe, last week.
Yeah, Missouri 0-3, straight up ATS away this year, all as favorites. This time they're a dog. Kelly Bryant looks like he's going to be okay and at least start the game. And let's not forget, a couple of weeks ago, you took Kentucky as an outright upset, and that came through for you. So Missouri, just not a good road team this year. I'm surprised that the line actually dropped a little. I know why it was. I figured it would be 21 with Bryant anyway, but apparently they thought it was a 5-point difference, and the reason why it was 21 was because Bryant may not play. But whatever, I'll run with the 16. And as far as the big game this week in the SEC, of course, the one everybody's talking about, LSU and Alabama. We've been kind of eyeing this, of course, all season. Alabama's a 6-point favorite. I think the line should be 3. That's why I'm taking LSU. I know it's going to be tough for LSU to run the table. If they beat Alabama, they may actually run the table. That's the thing I'm a little bit concerned with, because most people realize that Alabama can't afford to lose this game, but LSU can. So there's a little reason why I could see people saying, yeah, maybe Alabama wins this game, but LSU still gets to the playoffs. But look, LSU is just a better team, and they're going to want to win this game just as badly as Alabama. Because of that, I'm going with LSU.
Yeah, I like LSU too. Liked them several weeks ago, even before Tua got hurt. Both teams, we talk about their kind of vulnerability on defense compared to past seasons, but statistically, both teams are better this year than they were last year for yards per play allowed and points per game allowed. I was a little surprised by that, but Alabama does have a lot of youth on defense, a lot of true freshmen in that front seven. Just love LSU's offensive attack, the emergence of Clyde Edwards-Helaire as big-time running backs, which I did not think before the season that LSU would have this season, has given that dynamic offense even more balance. So I'm with you. The venue doesn't worry me too much. I like LSU to go in there and win the game.
Yeah, and Delpit, their star safety, we anticipate he's going to play. That would be a big loss for LSU. He could be a top 10, top 5 draft pick for all we know. It's possible, and I think you make a good point. Even if Tua plays, he's not going to be 100%. They've got a banged-up defense overall. Some of their top defenders are out for Alabama. I just think because of that, that's just another advantage that LSU has in this game. And it doesn't hurt also when you've got revenge on your mind, considering they haven't scored more than 17 points in the last 9 games against Alabama. And they're sick and tired of losing to this team.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, obviously a huge game, but as you mentioned, LSU's in both teams are obviously in really good shape. If they lose, LSU can survive a loss a little bit more than Alabama, but I don't worry about that. Motivation's not an issue in this game. If you're not motivated, then why are you playing? I don't think that's a big issue either way.
Now, in the beginning of the season, I had Georgia over LSU. You had Alabama over Georgia, so you're gonna switch.
Okay. Yes. That was months and months ago. Did not quite realize that LSU's offense would be so dynamic. There were whispers of a change, but we've seen it actually come to fruition.
Well, LSU was one of your 2 sleepers, though, before the season began.
Yeah.
So we both liked LSU. And who do you lean towards right now, LSU or Georgia?
For the championship, I would say LSU over Georgia.
Okay, and all right, let's go ahead and move on to the big. Well, actually, a couple more things quickly in the SEC. Arkansas is playing Western Kentucky. Just wanted to talk about that because Arkansas is only a 1-point favorite, and this is sort of like Tennessee UAB. That I've got to go with Arkansas. I know Tennessee's better than Arkansas, but that shows you why the line is 13 points difference. Interesting that Arkansas is going to start Jerry Jones' grandson at quarterback. But I suspect KJ Jefferson is going to get in there. He's the better recruit. I am concerned with Cheyenne O'Grady out for the year. He's their best weapon. But I think it should be interesting to see if this KJ Jefferson kid does get in, and maybe he's the future at quarterback for the Hogs.
That's my big takeaway with Arkansas this year, is that they haven't come close to establishing the quarterback of the future yet. They bring in 2 grad transfers. One, Starkel has another year of eligibility, but I'd be surprised if he's back. If you're going to be bad, you at least need to establish a quarterback for the future. They've not done that, and they've been bad in every aspect. So. I'd probably go Arkansas, but no, I would not be surprised if Western Kentucky goes up there and you look at the score and it's 21-0 second quarter Western Kentucky, because Arkansas has just not played well lately.
And maybe it's good timing that they bring in fresh blood at quarterback. Maybe that'll get something going. But we agree. Yeah. I mean, this should have happened a month ago. By the way, Lucky Jackson is having an incredible run for the Hilltoppers. He's had in his last 3 games, he's got 30 receptions, 503 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's a big play action for the Hilltoppers over the last 3 games with Story at quarterback. By the way, we didn't even think about that, huh?
Yeah, Arkansas transfer.
Maybe I
did not win the job coming out of camp either.
Maybe I should change my mind and take Western Kentucky now.
Yeah, he wants to win this game big time.
Yeah, okay. So that's definitely an interesting storyline. All right, Big Ten. Hey. I applauded you in the beginning of the season when you had the guts to take Penn State as one of your sleepers. to win the national championship, and there they are with a shot. Now, they are – it's interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens if they lose this game and beat Ohio State, because we went down this road a few years ago, and it didn't work out for Penn State. So I'm going to be – but Penn State doesn't, of course, want to be in that situation, so you have to win this game. Now, for Minnesota, they know that they're not going to do anything regarding the playoffs unless they win this football game and get to the Big Ten. They probably have to win out anyway. But this is a great story. Minnesota, it was my sleeper pick. Matter of fact, I had them in the Big Ten championship game of the season began. I just loved everything P.J. Fleck was doing. We talk about the offense all season long. Let's not forget Antoine Winfield, who was out last year with an injury. This kid is an incredible athlete. He's going to be a pro in a couple of years. But Minnesota's red hot. Penn State's red hot. It's a great matchup. I'm taking Minnesota as one of my top picks because I love the fact they're getting 7. I think they got a good chance to win the game. Chances are Penn State wins a close one, but I'll take 7 and say Minnesota at least keeps it close.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Unfortunately, for a lot of reasons, I wish this were a night game. I would just love to see a night game at Minnesota in the cold, but I think it's an 12 Eastern game. So I was hoping it was at night, but I like Penn State. I'm with you on Minnesota. I think every week on this podcast we talk about their skill, their good quarterback in Morgan, and they've got good running backs, 2 really good wide receivers. I just think Penn State controls the line of scrimmage and makes it difficult for those playmakers and makes enough plays. I like Penn State, maybe like a 24-14 type game.
And this first time Minnesota's a dog this year. That's interesting. The last 4 times they've been a dog, they have, let's see, if you take a look at it, I believe they've covered all 4. And the last 2, they were a dog at the end of last year. Don't forget, they killed Wisconsin last year at the end of the season. Yeah. Then they killed Georgia Tech in the bowl when everybody thought Georgia Tech with Paul Johnson's last game was going to be fired up. So Minnesota in this spot has done pretty well, and they've won their last 4 straight, by a 168-41 margin. So they've just been actually killing people lately, and that's why they're playing the best football of the year. I just want to mention this. Remember this. I don't know if you remember this. The last time these 2 teams met, do you remember the scenario a couple years ago?
Yeah, wasn't it in State College and James Franklin was on the hot seat? Really, not much had been going on, and then they won a close game,
overtime.
Right? And then they went on to start rolling.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. It jump-started their current run. They were 2-2 at the time. They're 37-7 since. That started a 9-game winning streak, including the Ohio State win. Their loss ended in the Rose Bowl, one of the best games of the year in that USC Rose Bowl game. That was their only loss that ended the streak. So, yeah, that's interesting that was the win that kind of got them going. All right, let's now move on to – by the way, this is a huge game too, Iowa-Wisconsin, because if Penn State does their job and beats Minnesota, the winner of Iowa-Wisconsin is actually in a situation where they'll control their own destiny, because Iowa plays Minnesota next week. So if they win, all of a sudden they can take a lead in that division with a win against Minnesota. If Wisconsin wins, they, of course, will play at Minnesota at the end of the season.
Right. Wisconsin's actually my pick still to win the division. I think they are in good position for the reasons you just mentioned. They get Iowa at home, and if they win that game, that basically, assuming everyone else takes care of business, it's a Wisconsin at Minnesota, winner take all on the last day of the regular season. And I'd like Wisconsin to win that.
I like Wisconsin in this game against Iowa because Iowa, the number 1 receivers out, leading tacklers out. They've scored 41 points in their last 3 road games. Wisconsin's given up 19 points in 5 home games this year, including 3 shutouts. I am a little bit worried of the fact that maybe opposing defenses have keyed in on Taylor because in the last 4 Big Ten games, he scored 1 touchdown per game, averaging 3.8 per rush. So something's not going on there. And if they can't run the football, they can't do anything offensively. But Iowa's offense is so bad that I'm not really too worried about giving 9 points.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like the Badgers.
Also, I do like Illinois. I'm taking Illinois with the outright double-digit upset over Michigan State. This whole thing with Bocce now being suspended for the year is a disaster. I don't like what's going on at Michigan State at all. Illinois is red hot. I mean, come on. I'm getting a 5-1 on the money line when Illinois is totally red hot, confident, sky high, and Michigan State can't do anything right.
Yeah, I like Illinois to cover. I don't know about winning outright there, but yeah, it's kind of gut check time for Michigan State. They lose this game, it's really going to start to get interesting there.
And Illinois, by the way, a win and they're in a bowl. So
yeah, I'm looking Michigan State. I know the level of competition and all that. Michigan State's points for and against in Big Ten games: 88 for, 141 against. Illinois 166 for, 163 against.
All right.
Michigan State has been beaten badly in league play.
They have been. By the way, you're not. I picked Minnesota to get to the Big Ten championship game. Minnesota was your official sleeper, as well.
Right.
Let's move on to the ACC. So Clemson's got the NC State game, but the big story, of course, is Taggart getting fired after the Miami debacle. I applaud Florida State for being proactive. Just move on if you're going to move on. So first things first, who becomes the next head coach of Florida State?
Not saying this would happen, but if I were the decision maker, I would hire Scott Satterfield from Louisville.
Why do you think that is something that could happen? Yeah, I guess it could. We've seen coaches move that quickly.
Yeah, Willie Taggart.
Yeah.
Was in Oregon for 1 year. So I don't know Satterfield. Obviously, I don't know him. I don't know if some coaches just on principle won't leave after 1 year, so he might shoot that down. Who knows? But I just think he's obviously a very good head coach. Fun offense. I think he'd be a great fit in Tallahassee.
Anything, because we're going to constantly hear the big names every time a good job is opened up, whether it's Stoops or whoever, Urban Meyer. So, is there any big name possibilities at Florida State?
I don't see it. Definitely not Urban Meyer. Stoops just come out and said no, basically. So who's a big name after that? So I think it's going to be in that Mark Stoops, Satterfield, Mike Norvell, that range of those type of names.
Maybe they should hire Bill Clark.
Yeah, good coach.
There are a good number of those types of guys available. Whether or not someone gives them a shot, we'll see. All right, Notre Dame at Duke. They had to survive Virginia Tech, and I had Virginia Tech as one of my double-digit upsets. So I was very upset that they didn't hold on to win that game. Typical when that happens, the drive and all the ways that they held on to those third and fourth downs. But Notre Dame survived. They're at Duke. You know what? I don't know what to think this week, but I will say this: if Notre Dame wins this week, I am jumping all over Navy next week.
Yeah, I can see that. I like Notre Dame to beat Duke. Duke's offense hasn't been great. Quentin Harris wasn't quite as good as I thought he would be this year. I just looked this up the other day. His stats in ACC play are not very good at all, not very efficient. I know this isn't an ACC game, but Notre Dame is basically a de facto, with the schedule they play, an ACC game here. So I like Notre Dame to win, and I like this Navy team. Great bounce back season.
Yeah, that's next week, so we'll look forward to that game because they're going to be a double-digit dog. So especially at Notre Dame, 19 turnovers this year for Duke. That's 119th in the nation. Notre Dame is one of the top turnover margin teams, so we'll see if that winds up coming into play again. By the way, speaking of Taggart and FSU, Boston College is one of my top picks of the week. I love them this week. They're only a 2-point favorite. You're going to get under 40-degree temperatures, so let's keep that in mind. The win gets them to a bowl. That's important. Home finale for the seniors. That's important. And all the other crap going on with Florida State. I love Boston College in this spot.
Yeah, I'm looking at their schedule right now. They played 4 of their last 5 games on the road. That's brutal. So after this one, at Notre Dame, at Pittsburgh. So this might be a must-win for bowl eligibility. So, yeah, good call.
Virginia, as soon as I give up on Virginia, they go out and have the best game of the season offensively. And I'm like, well, where is this every time I pick them and every time I was waiting for this? I think that maybe is the game that triggers the rest of the season. Maybe I'm wrong, but they are playing Georgia Tech. I'm surprised they're only a 15-point favorite. We both liked Clemson over Virginia when the season began. I'm going to stick with that now that Virginia won last week. What about you?
Yes, definitely. Virginia is tied in the loss column with Pittsburgh. They've already defeated Pittsburgh, and they closed the season with 3 straight home games, 2 in conference play, Georgia Tech, Liberty, and then the Virginia Tech game. Obviously, they need to get over that Virginia Tech hurdle. They haven't beaten, 13 years, something like that. But I think they're the better team this year, and it's at home. and that could wrap up a division title. That'll be a fun game for Virginia.
And Satterfield, speaking of him, I like Louisville getting 7 at Miami. Miami, yeah, okay, as a dog, that seems to work. But they're 1-4 against the spread as a favorite this year. They've lost 3 of 5 as a favorite this year. They've dropped 5 of 6 covers following Florida State. Brevin Jordan's banged up. We have no idea if he's going to play. Bubba Bolden's out for the year. And Louisville got to sit there. And by the way, Louisville is on a nice run here. They lose to Clemson, but in this last 4, but they beat BC. They're the only team to beat Wake Forest this year, and they beat Virginia. So they might actually win this game, but I feel comfortable getting the 7.
I agree totally. Miami's another one of those teams. As I'm flipping through schedules, they also play 4 of their last 5 on the road. This is the last home game for Miami, if that means anything there. But I cannot trust Miami. They've been too schizophrenic.
Yeah, they go into that Marlins Park game next week against FIU. And Wake Forest. Now, this is one of those games where us diehards are just keeping our fingers crossed that they don't look ahead. They win this game, because at least if they win this one last game, we have a little bit of hope next week when Wake Forest plays at Clemson, which is basically for the Atlantic Championship. Yes, they'll be a big dog, but we know Wake Forest is dangerous, and it'll just give us maybe that little tiny percentage of hope.
No chance.
Well, I'm just saying,
No chance.
Win
And
this game,
I like Wake
no,
as much.
win
I
this
like
game.
Wake as much as the next guy. Just I think everyone will get excited, and it'll be 28-3 in the second quarter.
I don't know if anybody's going to get excited except you and me. But all I'm saying is win this game, so we have that game. That's all. I mean, I know they're not going to win, but just give us the game next week. That's all.
Yeah.
That's all I'd like to see. And it'd be good for the program at Wake Forest. It'd be nice to see them in the spotlight next week. And maybe that'll be a primetime game. Who knows? I got no idea.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens. But what do you think? Do you think that's it's a tough spot? Virginia Tech's playing some pretty decent football lately.
Yeah, they have. In fact, Virginia Tech season is. I think I was talking about this the other day with someone at work. We kind of got, obviously the open season at BC, that's not good. But that Duke game where they lost on Friday night, 45-10, it just kind of ruined their season, I think, from reception. But this team is, they're 5-3. They've got a chance to win seven games in the regular season. It's not a complete debacle, I guess, is my point. And they still have some opportunities there. So they could still win the division.
Well,
but I like Wake
And if they
Forest.
win this game, we might get ourselves another Virginia Tech-Virginia game at the end of the season for the Coastal.
Yeah.
And just imagine, and of course that would be, look, if they win this game, which I hope they don't because of Wake, I hope that's what we'll get because of it,
Right.
because that'll be worth it. And then we know how big that'll be, of course, for Virginia. So, all right, let's go to the Big 12. And we both had Baylor as our sleepers in the Big 12, and they're sitting there in first place. And right now it's Baylor-Oklahoma for the Big 12 championship. And next week it's Baylor-Oklahoma in the regular season. So Kansas State, Texas, and Iowa State all have a shot to get to the Big 12 championship game. But, of course, they're going to need some help. They're going to need Baylor to lose a game like this in order for them to back a Baylor right now to get a shot. Interesting. Baylor, a better road team than home team this year. They've won their 2 road games by 37 points. They've won their 3 home games by just 8 points. So I kind of like Baylor in this spot. I don't think they're going to get a hiccup in a situation where they haven't beaten TCU in 4 years.
Yeah, I agree. Baylor's, I don't know how underrated you can be at 8-0, but they're statistically they lead the Big 12 in yards per play defense, and I think they're 3rd in offense. So this is not a fluke. And like you said, they've been dominant in their 2 league road wins. They've only undefeated team. They play Oklahoma and Texas at home, so they're in good situation to at least secure one of those spots in the Big 12 title game. And I agree, TCU's been one of the more inconsistent teams, one of the more difficult to figure out teams in the country this year. I like Baylor on the road.
Oklahoma, Iowa State. This is your upset double-digit play of the week. Iowa State beat Oklahoma in this situation on the road 2 years ago at Norman by a 31-point dog, and that was an incredible upset. That's what really got the whole program. Campbell, everybody just exploded with everything with this ever since that win. They've covered 3 straight overall in the series against Oklahoma. Oklahoma, interesting, they've covered 8 straight after they've had a bye following a loss. So they've done a good job after a loss and some time off to reflect to come back and win. But Iowa State's also been very good in this spot as a dog, especially under Campbell. But you're going with the outright upset.
Yeah, just shake it up a little bit there. And Iowa State, if they're, I think it's their only win over Oklahoma, not ever, but it's in a long time. And I think there's a belief there. And, they watched the game film. They saw what Kansas State did running the ball against Oklahoma. And Iowa State's much more balanced on offense there. And Oklahoma's offense is among the best in the country, but they haven't been great on defense. So I think they got a chance.
And Kansas State, Texas. Now, this is a huge game. If Oklahoma takes care of business against Iowa State, and let's just say Baylor loses to TCU, the winner of this game is now back in the hunt for the Big 12 championship game. And who would have thought that with Kansas State just a few weeks ago? But they have the chance. This was a team that we saw at the beginning of the season that had sleeper ramifications because of their coach. Didn't look like that was the case a few weeks ago, but they're red hot. Texas is getting healthier right now, and they're coming off a bye. But I think this is, 7 points to me, a little bit of disrespect. That's just name recognition. So I'm jumping all over Kansas State. This is one of my top picks of the week, +7.
Yeah, I like Kansas State to cover there. Texas, we've talked all season about their defense. Kansas State's offense, after struggling in its first 2 Big 12 games, has been great of late there. So I like Texas to win, but I like Kansas State to cover.
Texas has lost 2 of their last 3 this year. The win was the last-second field goal win against Kansas, while K-State's 3-0, straight-up ATS last 3, including the upset over Oklahoma. So it's just 2 teams in opposite directions, and yet the hot team's getting 7. So that's the reason why I think we're both taking the Wildcats in that spot. All right, so that's the Big 12. Let's go to the Pac-12 before we go to the group of 5 teams. Pac-12, the big wins we needed as fans last week happened. Utah wins. Oregon wins. They both win on the road. Which one was more impressive?
I think Utah, just the quality of the opponent, the way they came back. They were down, 2 scores at one point, came back and won. They have been so impressive. They've only given up 81 points in league play this year. The next fewest by any team is Oregon at 106, and Utah just dominant defense, efficient on offense. It continues. I understand why Oregon's ranked higher in the playoff rankings right now, but I think Utah, to me, is a better team right now.
And I think Joey Galloway doesn't know what he's talking about in this situation. He said on a few shows that he thinks that the only way one of these 2 teams gets in is they're going to basically have to beat the crap out of the other team in the Pac-12 championship game. I mean,
I don't think that's the case.
That's showing absolutely zero respect for either of these teams when you have to say something like that.
I totally agree.
All right, our Beavers.
Yes.
Friday night, one of my top picks of the week, 11-point spread. It's gone to 10.5 now. Yes, I'm worried about the fact that Oregon State's a better road team than a home team.
They have not won a home game, a home Pac-12 game since the Jonathan Smith era.
They lost 52-7 at home against Utah. Yes, I'm all. That doesn't make me confident, but I'm just feeling maybe this is the game that we've all been waiting for. The beginning of the next phase of Oregon State football. I mean, Luton's been on fire. He's got a 19-1 TD to interception ratio, which is fantastic. Jefferson came back last game, so Jefferson's healthy along with Pierce. Hodgins is one of the best receivers nobody knows about in college football. The defense is the issue. I'm hoping Washington State will have a hangover after the loss to Utah in a situation where this game means absolutely nothing to them.
You mean Washington?
Yes.
But yes. Yeah, it's a gutsy pick right there, especially it's at home where the Beavers don't play well, like you mentioned. But, it just said all year, this is such an impressive year, too, for Jonathan Smith because they got pounded last year. They didn't just go 1-8. their 8 losses were all decisive. So that's why I was concerned. But they've obviously, they open up this season. They look bad against Oklahoma State. They lose at Hawaii, but they've been very good other than that Utah game. So really impressed there. I think Washington wins the game here, but nothing would surprise me. You're right. They're getting good quarterback play. They've got good skill. There's a lot to be excited about in Corvallis.
And Washington 1-3 in their last 4 games. By the way, they've beaten Oregon State the last 7 straight by 28 points per game. All right, now, in Oregon State, if they do happen to shock everybody and win this game, we'll need one more win for bowl eligibility. But they got a tough schedule, so chances are, I don't know. But, again, they play better on the road, so who knows. Let's just see if they can pull out the miracle win tomorrow night. I just hope they cover. All right, let's now move on to the other game in the conference. So, actually, there's really nothing else going on in the conference this week because Utah and Oregon are done. But taking a look overall, you had Utah winning the preseason, and I had Utah also in the championship game. So are you sticking with Utah? What do you think about Utah-Oregon if that's what we get?
Yeah, Utah-Oregon would be my pick right now, and I would go Utah. I think they're the better team.
All right, let's now go to the group of 5, starting with the AAC. And Memphis went ahead and came up with the win last week over SMU. And SMU, of course, didn't have Roberson, it turns out, but the defense just couldn't stop Memphis when they needed to. So that puts Memphis in a good situation. They're tied with SMU in the West, a half game behind Navy, who's off this week. And, again, they got Notre Dame next week. So what do you think about the AAC West, the way it shapes up? When does Navy play Memphis? When does that happen?
They already played him. Remember?
That's
Memphis
right.
Beat
When
him.
Perry was hurt.
Quarterback.
That's right.
Yeah, quarterback got banged up. But I'm going Cincinnati versus Navy in the championship game. I think Memphis has to play at Houston and Cincinnati at home, and Navy still has SMU at home and at Houston. So I think Navy wins out and Memphis stubs its toe, and Navy wins the division.
All right. I'm right there with you. That makes a lot of sense to me. And in the East, Cincinnati looks like they're in good position because they beat Central Florida. So it looks like Cincinnati's going to and wow, what a game last week. I was this close to taking East Carolina last week. And, we talked about Houston before. I just felt that they were going to do something this year. And they came so close to pulling off that upset last week against Cincinnati that, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and take them this week. I think SMU, there's a chance for them to have a hangover in this game. East Carolina has covered 4 out of 5, so I do like the cover. They're getting about 21, 22 points. But I tell you what, East Carolina fans should be really happy. They've got themselves a heck of a coach. It's going to be a couple of years before they start rebuilding. But look at the progress we're already seeing with Jonathan Smith at Oregon State.
Yep. No, good call. Definitely a good coach.
All right. Who do you like? And I know your 4-star, Central Florida against Tulsa. So you think that Tulsa's a scary team, though? You're not worried about Tulsa in that spot?
I think UCF's in the destruction portion of their schedule, where they've been playing very well offensively of late. I think Tulsa has, had opportunities obviously to beat Memphis and SMU and fluid different fashions there. I'm not saying they're like defeated too much. I just think UCF is playing really well, and Tulsa's just not playing off the string. I think just the UCF is I really like their offense right now.
No bowl for the 3rd straight year for Tulsa. I'm not sure. I think this might be it for Montgomery, unless maybe he pulls off the upset on Friday night. Just 7 wins since they were 10-3 in 2016.
Yep.
So, anything in your gut about who might be a Tulsa coach?
Don't have my Tulsa list handy right now.
All right, Temple, South Florida, by the way, is tonight. And, I must say, Charlie Strong, I'm going to give him a lot of credit. I know they haven't beaten anybody, but I still give them a lot of credit for not, his players could have quit on him about a month ago. I don't know what they'll do tonight because Temple's been banged up lately and they're not playing good football. But again, I'm not sure Charlie Strong will save his job, but maybe he will.
Yeah, bummed there's not a better game tonight. That's my analysis of that game.
All right. And this was the team, of course, that Charlie Strong took over for Willie Taggart. Remember that he took over an 11-win Taggart team in 16. He won 10 games in 2017 in year 1, then 7 last year and only 4 this year. So if they don't win another game, it could be it for Charlie Strong. Could be it anyway.
Definitely, trending in the wrong direction,
Maybe
no
Willie
doubt.
Tiger to go back.
Hey, actually, not a bad call.
Greg Schiano might be back at Rutgers, so
yeah.
I pray. I'm just glad that Butch Jones isn't involved anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, Conference USA. Actually, Mountain West. And we got a big game, Wyoming and Boise State. Bad luck for Wyoming. Sean Chambers is out for the year. Maybe this is a blessing in disguise because Tyler Vanderwall was their Week 1 starter. He started all the way through Week 8 last year. He came in after Chambers broke his leg against Air Force Week 11 and accounted for 4 touchdowns in their comeback win against the Falcons. He gets an extra week to prepare for this game. He's a better thrower than Sean Chambers. He can run, and Chambers had 567 on the ground and 10 rushing touchdowns. That's a big blow for Wyoming, but they got a good defense. They're a good football team. I love what Craig Bohl's done there. Hank Bachmeier is just one banged-up kid. Didn't have numbers at all to speak of against San Jose State because they had to rely on their running game. I think this is going to be a good football game, even with the quarterback out. I even think Wyoming might be able to pull off the upset.
I think Wyoming's living a lie a little bit. 3-1 in the league with 3 home wins over UNLV, New Mexico, and Nevada, 3 of the weaker teams. They still have to play at Boise State, at Utah State, at Air Force. So I think they have little chance to win the division, even if they win this game. But I like Boise State.
All right, you're not giving Wyoming any. I'll tweet the show over to Wyoming faithful.
I don't need any enemies in Wyoming. It's a great place.
Yeah, it's maybe we'll get some snow on Saturday night in Boise on the blue turf. That wouldn't be a bad deal. But they did give him some credit for beating Missouri at home.
Obviously great win in week 1. But
yeah, well, I get what you're saying because I think I also noticed that in a lot of games they were being out yardaged in a lot of games, which is not a good thing. Utah State Fresno. I just want to talk about this game because Fresno obviously needs the win. They play San Diego State on Friday, which is huge for the Mountain West. Because right now San Diego in the West because it's a 2-team race basically. And I like them this week because Utah State had nothing last week when David Woodward before the game did not play. He's out for the season. He's the heart and soul of the defense. Utah State's just right now they're just the confidence is shot.
They scored 14 points or fewer in 3 of the last 4. Clearly not the offense or team we thought we'd see. I
love San Jose State against Hawaii. How about those Spartans?
Love the Spartans. Brent Brennan getting it done.
Absolutely. They've outgained Boise State and Arkansas this year. And Hawaii, they had a crazy comeback last week. They're down 10. They had 24-14 at half. They give up 24 straight unanswered points. Then Rolovich decides to bring Cordero in the fourth quarter. Touchdown with 2 minutes left. Onside kick. Touchdown. Ties the game. And then Fresno State goes down, kicks a field goal with no time left, and beats them. So that's a crazy. Yeah. But bottom line is that San Jose State I think they're in a good spot here because Hawaii is a terrible favorite. Under Rolovich, they're 1-11-1 against the spread as a favorite.
Wow. Interesting.
All right, so we both like San Jose State. By the way, Air Force New Mexico game canceled because of the death of the player there for New Mexico, Flowers.
Defensive line.
So that's a real tough deal. You had Army last week, by the way, as your outright upset winner last week, and they almost did it. That was a crazy ending, by the way.
Yep.
And let's move on. Oh, who do you like, by the way, in the Mountain West? Right now, Boise leads Air Force by a half game.
Boise and San Diego State.
Boise, and so you're going to go with the leaders. Let's go to the Conference USA. And, by the way, Western Kentucky was your sleeper in the beginning of the season. They don't have a conference game this week. I just wanted to let everybody know that you did like them, so kudos to you. We haven't talked a lot about Louisiana Tech this year, and maybe we should. They lead the West. They're a game up on Southern Miss UAB. They're a 5-point favorite against New Mexico State. They've won 7 straight games. They get Marshall on the road on Friday, which is a huge game. I like Louisiana Tech against North Texas in this game. And let's keep in mind the UAB Southern Miss game. The winner will be in second place behind Louisiana Tech for the West.
Louisiana Tech, they beat Southern Miss, who's solid. They beat FIU. Then they beat Rice and UTEP. So a lot of times you got to look at who these teams have defeated. Conference USA, because there's so many bad teams. But Louisiana Tech, they lost in the opener to Texas, and like you said, they've won 7 straight. So I like Louisiana Tech to hold on in that division. Marshall's already won at FAU, which is really going to give them an advantage in the East.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, does Western Kentucky still play Marshall? No, they just lost to Marshall. The last 2 weeks, they lost to the first place team. Okay. By the way, if UAB beats Southern Miss, 2 weeks from now, they will play Louisiana Tech.
Well, they play them anyway. I'm just being a wise guy.
What was that? Why'd you say that?
I said they play them anyway, because you said if they beat them, they play Louisiana Tech.
So
just
all right. So, but you like Louisiana Tech, though?
Yes,
I do.
All right,
I'll take UAB. You know how I am with Bill Clark and the Blazers.
Yes.
So I'll stick with UAB, and I like him obviously in the game against Southern Miss. So who do you like?
Sun Belt.
Yeah, Sun Belt. Appalachian State loses last week. What a shocker! What did you think about that one?
I was surprised. I mean, what other game? It was the Baylor-West Virginia game was on, so I was watching more of that, but flipping around. And great, Georgia Southern's beaten them 2 straight years. That really opens the door for Georgia State, who's been one of the surprise teams, because I believe Georgia State hosts App State.
Next week.
Yes. So they are in. That's the biggest game in program history.
That was my sleeper. My sleeper, Georgia State's coming through.
Yeah, so I think Georgia State can win that division.
Yeah, they've won 4 straight games. They're a 2-point favorite at Louisiana Monroe, so they've got to take care of business in that one first. Then they get App State next week, so we'll keep an eye on that. I like Georgia Southern, by the way, against Troy. I mean, they're playing really good football.
Troy's not been good. Chip Lindsey, first year, it's been a disappointing season.
And 5-star pick of the week is your game tonight. You're jumping on Louisiana. Even though Coastal Carolina has played teams tough, and they did beat Kansas and Troy, but Louisiana has been a very solid football team, and you like him as a 5-star pick.
Yeah. Let me look. There's something I did not love about Coastal. They won at Troy they beat Troy. They lost 3 straight. Defense has not been good. Other than since that Kansas game, they held Kansas to 7 points, which is a nice feat because we've seen what Kansas can do offensively. But their defense has not been good, and I think Billy Napier at home, I really like that offense.
All right, and right now it looks like Lafayette, I think I'm going to be with you. I think Lafayette will play in the championship game. And App State, look, Georgia Southern wins out. They're going to be in the championship game, more than likely.
Yeah. Not that the Sun Belt gets huge TV ratings, but I can't imagine a Louisiana versus Georgia State would be a big
I agree with you. And by the way, the MAC, what did you think about the games the last couple of days? Miami with a big win, because now Miami's got the lead in the West, and they've beaten both Buffalo and Ohio, so it looks like they're in good shape. The East is still anybody's division.
Right. Good for Chuck Martin at Miami. Kind of in the season on the hot seat. They had lost so many close games in the last 2 years. So like you said, they're 4-1, but they're basically 2 games up on everyone because of the tiebreakers, and then. It's not even worth. I mean, in the West, we still have 4 teams with 2 losses. So, in the West.
Oh, is that what it is? Okay.
Yeah, it's Western Michigan, Central Michigan, Ball State, and Toledo. Ball State's really let some opportunities to control that division.
Who do you go with in the East then?
I'll go Miami in the East, Western Michigan in the West.
Western Michigan, okay. You know what? I'm going to go ahead then and take Central Michigan.
Okay.
So that probably means Western Michigan has to lose. And Western Michigan next week is at Ohio on Tuesday. So we'll talk about that. All right, so that's going to wrap it up. And hey, great games this weekend, and we'll have a lot. Looking forward to talking more about it as the rest of the season starts to heat up. Appreciate your time as always, Mitch.
All right.